CSS3. Which of the following is the correct syntax to change the background color in CSS3? Background color white. What does the border radius property do in CSS3? Rounds the corners of an element. Which of the following is a valid CSS3 selector? Hashtag selector. Which property is used to change the font of an element in CSS3? Font family. How can you apply a shadow effect to text in CSS3? Text shadow 2px, 2px, 5px, hashtag 000000. Which property is used to change the background image in CSS3? Background image. How do you make a CSS3 transition effect happen when an element is hovered over? Transition all 0.5 s is. What is the purpose of the at media rule in CSS3? To define styles for different screen sizes or devices. Which property in CSS3 is used to set the height of an element? Height. Which CSS3 property is used to define the space between lines of text? Line height. How can you create a circular shape using CSS3? By setting border radius to 50%. Which of the following is used to specify the width of an element in CSS3? Width. Which property in CSS3 is used to control the opacity of an element? Opacity. Which property is used to set the space between the content and the border of an element in CSS3? Padding. Which of the following CSS3 properties is used to set the display behavior of an element? Display. Which CSS3 property is used to change the text color? Color. How do you set the font size of an element in CSS3? Font size 16px. Which of the following is used to specify the background color of an element in CSS3? Background color. What is the function of z-index in CSS3? It controls the stacking order of elements. Which of the following is used to create a gradient background in CSS3? Background image linear gradient. Which CSS3 property is used to create space between elements? Margin. Which of the following is a new CSS3 layout feature for creating flexible layout? Fluxbox. How do you create an animated transition effect for a property change in CSS3? Transition property duration. center text or horizontally using CSS3. Text to align center. Which property is used to control the line height in CSS3? Line height. What property in CSS3 used to add a shadow effect of an element's box shadow? Which of the following is a new unit of measurement in CSS3? REM. Which of the following CSS3 properties is used to control the layout of items inside a container? Flux. What is the function of the display flux property in CSS3? It creates a flexible container for layout. Which of the following is used to create a responsive design in CSS3? At media queries. Which property is used to set the transparency of element in CSS3? Opacity. What is the purpose of float property in CSS3? To float elements left or right. Which of the following is the correct syntax for a CSS3 class selector? Dot class name. Which CSS3 property allows you to set the border style of an element? Border style. What is the purpose of the at font face rule in CSS3? To load custom fonts. How do you set a font weight of bold in CSS3? Font weight bold. Which CSS3 property allows you to add a curved border to an element? Border radius. Which CSS3 property is used to set the background size of an image? Background size. What does the text align justify property do in CSS3? Aligns text to both the left and right margins. What does the visibility hidden property do in CSS3? It makes the element invisible but still takes up space. Which of the following properties is used for 2D transmission in CSS3? Transform. How do you add a H over effect in CSS3? Element H over brackets. Which property is used to set the text alignment in CSS3? Text align. What is the purpose of box sizing in CSS3? It defines how the width and height of elements are calculated. Which of the following CSS3 properties is used to specify the width of the border? Border width. How do you define a keyframe animation in CSS3? At keyframes. Which CSS3 property is used to control the visibility of an element? Visibility. Which CSS3 property controls the layout of an element in a 2D grid? Grid. What is the function of the position property in CSS3? It specifies how an element is positioned in the document. How do you add a border around an element in CSS3? Border 1px solid black.